thank you so much for coming on. You have no idea like how much you inspire me on Instagram with all of your workouts and being a fellow zebra. And I know that all of us with these conditions, we don't have the same levels or the same problems or the same issues. And you can't look at someone else and go, oh, she has my disorder, I can do all of that. But you really do give me a lot of hope, I have to say.
Oh, that's awesome. I love hearing that. Like, I always tell people it's not about getting to where I am tomorrow. It's just about taking that first step.
That's a really beautiful way of putting it, Kressenda, I'm so sorry. Did I pronounce it
No,
right?
no, you did it right. You pronounced it correctly.
Okay, I'm I am on enough opioids to make like Kurt Cobain's ghost very jealous right now. So I'm going to like stumble my words, and I'm very sorry. I will work as hard as I can. Because like I found you on Instagram through someone else's account, and you do weightlifting, right, for your Ehlers Danlos?
Correct.
Not
I'm
for
actually
it, but
competing in strongman in about 2 weeks.
oh my god, congratulations! I'm so excited. You were recommended to me by I think it was another person I'd interviewed, and she was like, "You've got to check out this girl's like Instagram account. It's going to give you so much life from like the strength, the body positivity, all of this amazing like inspiration that you've been given. Like watching you do like the deadlifts and like the squats, I am in serious jealousy on like the Wonder Woman status." So please explain to a fellow zebra who is not in the same path as you, but how did you start this? Did you like where are you with your progression? Just so we don't inspire a whole bunch of zebras who are like me, who are like dislocating when they point at something to go rushing to the gym. Like
Well, I didn't get diagnosed until 2015. And in about 2009, when I was getting ready to graduate with my bachelor's, I decided to start working out a little bit. And it was always kind of an up and down workout where I'd be really excited about the gym. And then 2 weeks later, things would go bad. And I never knew why. And I just kept doing that and kept building that foundational strength. A lot of it was just like elliptical and bike riding and simple stuff. And it wasn't until after kind of around 2015 was when I was riding my bike to work. And I ended up hitting a tree going bike riding with my boyfriend. And
no.
that's when things started kind of falling into place. And that's when my primary care was like, hey, I think you have this thing.
Are you
And once we started
serious?
putting two and two together, yeah,
I'm just thinking
it
like
was
that's the spoony like zebra dream. I mean, most of us are like chasing for like decades. Like, what could this be? And you had a GP say, "Hey, maybe it's this." What a great GP!
yeah, it was funny because initially we were going through all kinds of different things that it could be, and initially everything was just blamed on like endometriosis and polycystic ovarian, and then I happened to be sitting. I always sit kind of with one foot against the floor and standing on the other ankle, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So ankle's just not doing what it's supposed to be doing. And then I guess I had bent my fingers backwards on the table, and he's like, "That's not normal."
Oh,
And
so you have like the
it
swan
was
deformation. The
correct,
yay!
correct. They were bent funny on the table, and he was like, "Oh, something's not right here." And we put two and two together, and it was so quick how quickly the diagnosis happened. From going to the geneticist and going to a pain specialist, I mean, it was kind of a whirlwind of just a slew of diagnoses coming through. But once I knew that, it was kind of a little bit easier for me to actually get into the gym because I realized just why I was lifting things a certain way and why I would do things a certain way to keep things from dislocating, why I walk the way I walk to keep your hips in place. And explaining that to my boyfriend's a personal trainer, and explaining that to him was really kind of interesting to say, when I walk, I don't just throw my foot out there and walk. I have to actually sit there and flex every single muscle in order to make sure that nothing dislocates and nothing pops out. But then getting into the gym, you were able to kind of use that. And we have this really great mind-body connection already from us just sitting there thinking about how am I going to put my foot down when I jump off of this curb? And turning that on into the gym and adding extra weight on top of that seemed like a really easy progression. And it helped me build that foundational strength that allowed me in about 5 years to actually get into to the place I am now.
I'm trying to put my jealousy aside right now because I'm turning a little green with envy of, like, first off, a partner who's a personal trainer. I am so jealous. I cannot believe how much I spent on that.
Much.
Yes. I have, I'm going to give a call out for Joe at, oh goodness, he's over in Burlingame at a fitness facility. I'm blanking on which one, but I'll put it in the show notes if you live in the Burlingame area. But he retaught me how to walk once I got my diagnosis, because I had been walking ballet style, one foot in front of the other, which is super pretty and makes the hips swishy, but it was like destroying my hips. And he was like, okay, we're gonna, took me forever, but he was the one who taught me how to walk proper. But you're right, there's so many funny, weird things. Like, even if you didn't know you were dislocating, that you're doing just to, like, keep it safe, even though you didn't realize that's what you were doing. Like, you're right, the body is so much smarter than our brains sometimes.
And I had no clue I was doing some of these things, especially with, like, the way I flex my quads in order to keep my hips in. I had no clue. But then when I translated that into something simple like doing a leg press at the gym, my leg press maxed out what most of the guys I know could do at the gym.
How good did that feel?
It is such a great feeling.
Let me live vicariously through you for a minute.
It's such a fun feeling. It used to be our joke of I lift my boyfriend's weight. Is we never have had to change weights when we go to the gym together. I just lift what he's lifting, and sometimes I'll continue lifting after he's already done. Now, granted, there's some things that he can definitely beat me on. There's quite a few. But for the most part, I can keep up. And a lot of things I'll end up surpassing him. Like, he can't deadlift because he has a herniated disc.
That's one of the only things I can still do, because I have mass dislocations of the femurs and the tibias and the ankles. So almost everything's out for me. Certainly I can't do leg presses or anything, but since it's just that movement from floor to knee, I can still do it with, like, almost no weights, but it's the only thing I can still kind of do for my old life.
It's the one thing that actually scares me, because back in high school, our gym lockers used to have these little bitty benches that were only like 6 inches big, and I used to pretend to tightrope walk on them, balance beam style, and I actually fell and took one of the benches to my shins. So I have a permanent divot in my shin. Although we could probably blame EDS for it not breaking, because it probably just popped out and popped back in.
EDS is such a mixed bag, isn't it?
It is. It really is. But I have those divots in my shin, and of course, sometimes at night I'm sitting up going, one of these times I'm going to be under so much load that shin's going to finally break. And that's probably one of my biggest fears, is you just never know where the injury is going to come.
It's so true. Like, people talk about the medical PTSD, and I'm like, it's so true. Totally understand. I almost have PTSD with walking. Like, just the incredible fear I have that, like, each step is the last step I will take for the next 3 weeks, because I have no idea if when I step down, if that's going to be a tibia dislocation. This weekend I had a full foot dislocation. The whole ankle came off from the bone. Like, it was just, I could fit, like, most of my fingers in. It was so awesomely gross. Like, John Carpenter wishes he could, like, create special effects that disgusting. But it's like, you never know, like, what movement is going to put you in bed for weeks, and it's so weirdly stressful. And that's why it's so fascinating with your story. And I don't know if you know about I forgot her name. She's in Colorado. It's a woman who does an Ehlers Danlos gym, basically.
Mm-hmm. I did not.
Yeah, she has her own gym, and it's mostly for zebras. And her theory is that muscle gain is the only thing that's going to stop progression. And
I tell people all the time is our muscles are our internal braces.
Because God knows the external braces are not really doing it.
Good enough.
I want exoskeleton. I'm such a nerd. I'm such a geek. I love, like, the whole idea of Black Panther's suit that comes on. I'm like, can I have that with extra strength around the joints? That could be cool. But you're right, because it is our internal bracing, and there's so nothing on the horizon that is going to cure or even help this, except just to manage our discomfort to a very small degree.
Yeah.
So if you're like, that's what I always tell people is I'm older than all of you guys, and whenever I get you younger people on who are like, I'm hypermobile or I'm not Danlos and I'm 20s or 30s, I'm like, great, you're not in a wheelchair yet. Go lift weights now while you can, like while you're able. It's
Well,
really hard
actually,
to do it once
that's
you're
kind of
this.
what happened was we were looking at the idea of of the chair. We were looking at a permanently using the forearm braces, and they after I dislocated a knee, they had given me the full like leg brace and a walker, and I was like, you know what, I
Nothing
can't.
sexier than a walker.
I was like, I think I was like 33 at the time, and I was like, no, I am not using a walker. We are going to figure out another way. And the easiest thing I could think of was just to strengthen the muscles around it. If my ligaments and tendons weren't going to stay in place, well, maybe the muscles will help hold it.
I mean, the only thing I can think of is I usually get called like the it's a huge pride moment. I usually get called the worst Ehlers Danlos case that whatever doctor I'm seeing has ever seen, and it's like,
Yeah.
great. I feel a little proud of that, oddly and perversely enough, but weird. And it's like, God, what can we do here? And going into the wheelchair was the only thing I could do at this point. But it is that big fight that I've had with all of my. I'm sorry. I'm like I keep my habit is to keep talking in circles till I get to a point when I'm in this much pain. So please forgive me as I'm super circular. But that was the big fight with my doctors, and I was like, do we brace? Do we wheelchair? Or do I just try to keep pushing through the dislocations? Because if I'm in the wheelchair or bracing, I'm not using my muscles, which I'm sure you heard.
Yeah,
and
that
then
was my biggest fear.
Yeah, and then there's
once you're in the chair, it's just so easy to stay in the chair. And especially because the chair is safe and you know you're not going to have these bigger dislocations in the chair. So
I have managed to, by the way.
I'm sure. The thought process is you won't.
Yeah, and it's,
we can prove them wrong.
Give me a challenge. Yeah, challenge accepted. And it's such, like, even within my own self, it's such a fight all the time of, do I use the chair? Or do I try to push? Or am I going to end up making myself worse? And each day, that's a different answer. It's such a weird thing. Like, there's no progression.
I go to the gym, it's a different answer of, do I push myself to go to the gym? Or do I stay home and just kind of let my body heal? But how much do you actually heal?
You know, I mean, all I can say, and please, everyone, do not sue us. We are not doctors. We are not specialists. We're just talking about what works for us. So really talk to your doctor or physical therapist about this first. But the thing that I've done, because I refuse to not remain physically active in some way, even at my worst, is that I have the exercise bands and I have a set of ridiculously light weights. And if you're stuck in bed, you can like keep those right by your bedside. And Pilates, if you go back to his original stuff that he developed after the war when he was stuck in bed, you can do a ton of Pilates in bed that you can do like little things like even just.
And people laugh at me, but back in the day, remember Richard Simmons had the sweat into the oldies?
How do you forget that?
Had stuff that you could do if you were extremely overweight and stuck in bed. And he had some great things of just getting your body used to movement and teaching your brain how your body's supposed to move and how your body's safe to move while you're in bed.
That is so cool. I'm getting some serious static on your side.
Oh, it's my roommate's getting some ice for her coat.
Hello, roommates, and I fully approve the coffee. That is awesome. No worries. I just wanted to make sure that wasn't going to be permanent. So it sounds like you and I have a lot in common in that, like, you probably were experiencing dislocations through your childhood and your teen years, and you weren't diagnosed till later. Is that right?
That's the guess. My mom's a nurse. My mom was an ER nurse at the time, and our thing was always it was one of those things where it's so easy when you see your mom working so hard with these really large emergencies that you're like, I remember one time when I was in drill team, I thought for sure my hip dislocated. And of course, logic would say, no, it didn't. And it was so easy to just disregard everything and say, there's no way that could actually happen. that I continued doing that throughout the time, throughout I don't know how many years. And looking back, I'm like, there's a lot of times that I'm willing to bet that that was actually a thing. And I used to think that the pain and everything that was going on was just normal. That this is what everybody was feeling, and I was just a wuss.
Oh
And
my God, you
I'm
just
like,
hit me
oh
in the
my
solar
gosh.
plexus with that one. Yes. I went between like, is this what everyone else is feeling and they're just better at it than me? Or am I some sort of
That's
weird
what I thought.
alien? Like trying to explain the level of pain to my PE teachers and to my parents is like, I want to just put your soul in my body for like 10 minutes and see if this is actually a real thing from someone else's perspective. Like, it's just so insane
Well,
to think about it as a reality.
looking back, it's so easy to disregard a kid when they say, oh, I think I dislocated my hip, but it's okay, I popped it back in.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, you sound absolutely ridiculous and you sound like you're trying to get out of something. And it's one of those things where how do you balance believing children and also balance with the, oh, I don't want to go to school today?
Oh
It
my
is
God.
it's such a weird balance. And looking back, I don't blame anybody, but at the same time, I'm just so mad at myself for not being able to articulate it properly.
You know, I've actually because I've raised a teenager who is successfully now living his own life, and I'm raising a junior high, and I have to say my experiences as a kid and the not being believed and the like dismissal has very much pushed me to the other side of I would rather they miss a day of school that they didn't have to than ever feel like I didn't believe their.
Yeah.
I'm like I always told them I'm like I'm not in your body and you're the one who has to live with the consequences of not going to school, and so I'm gonna trust you to know the pros and cons, and I am here to support you. Like, and it might be like too much of a hippie liberal parent, which anyone who knows me, how liberal and hippie of a parent do you think I am? Yes. But I also always felt like my relationship with them was going to be more important in the long run. And if they know that I always believed them and I trusted them to trust their bodies, I felt like that was safer for them because I never ended up trusting my own body. I never trusted that
Yeah.
I knew best or that I knew when to go to the hospital. And that's almost killed me a few times. The like,
Yeah, and I think for me it was me more not trusting myself of knowing when to speak up and when to say something that and it was a complete fear of going to the hospital or actually having it be something. And now looking back, now that I know what it was, I wish I had spoken up and I wish I had said something because I'm pretty sure having a mom who's a nurse, she probably would have moved the world to help me out. And I didn't know myself enough to really speak up. And even still to this day, there's times where I'm like, no, it's okay. I'm going to go flip the tire when I know darn well that I need to just hang out and relax. And it's always testing your boundaries and always trying to figure out what you can do next.
I mean, Ehlers Danlos is kind of like, if you want to distill it down to philosophy, it's got to be like one of the most Buddhist disorders ever of you have to live in the moment because what happened in the past and what will happen in the future have no relevance in the moment right
Yeah,
now.
that's clever.
I always say it's like the best way to Buddhism is to get, or to have Ehlers Danlos, not to get because you can't get it. I mean, we're a very exclusive club. Either you're born with it or you're not. But it is like the biggest, quickest way to like Buddhism, that ideal of the moment is all there is.
Yeah. Well, you never know what the future holds, especially when you're doing something like heavy lifts and stuff. I never know if this lift is going to be what's going to end my career. And you just have to kind of let the moment happen and enjoy it in the moment and deal with consequences later.
That one I have to hold for a second because that's so real. I mean, that's so true. You never know when you have this disorder. Like, is this, you like if you're
Yeah.
going out somewhere, like when I go out with my kids and like it was a good day, like 6 months ago, and we went down to Pescadero, and that's where we love to like go look at the seals, and you have to kind of like climb along rocks, and it's like I'm doing this, but I know at best I'm going to be in bed for the next 2 weeks. At worst, I'm going to dislocate an ankle while I'm down here, and someone's going to have to carry me back up. But you just have to enjoy it because that's what you have right now.
Yeah, not too well. I guess it was quite a long ago. Last summer, my boyfriend and I went hiking on this really beautiful hike near the house, and I remember telling him, "Oh, this is awesome. We're going to do this like every week." And we have not done it in like months. And it's just one of those things where, you know what, we had a really good hike and we'll get back to that hike and we're going to do it again. It's just not right now.
And a quick moment for partners who get that, understand that, and can just ride with it and like find the humor in it. Because that's like one of the biggest issues, at least for the people I know who have chronic illness, is guilt, shame, and regret. I mean, like, and then when someone else is putting that on you as well, you have my utter respect and hugs if that's you. I'm so incredibly fortunate and lucky that I don't have that right now. I did before in previous relationships. And that was just devastating to like have the doubt and the constant guilt. And so nice to like that. And I'm older. And so our idea of like a wild and crazy night is that we get to watch Deadpool 2 in front of the fireplace and have and get takeout Indian food. So that's our wild and crazy Saturday night now anyway. And I'm sure a lot of people in their 40s could probably maybe relate to such like wild and crazy evenings, so at least I don't have that. But for you, like, how is this process? Because you didn't have a diagnosis for so long, and how did that work out for you through college? And as you had quite an academic career.
I actually ended up having to drop out of my PhD program and kind of put it on hold because at the time, I was not able to balance life and I was constantly ill. And this was around the time where I had lots of bouts of diverticulitis and ended up having to have my colon taken out.
Okay, see, I don't know all the things you have right now. I was like, oh, she's this fellow zebra. And then you're like, PCOS and endometriosis. Are those also things too?
They are. They are. There's so many little comorbid disorders that come with EDS that it's just a slew of diagnoses that it becomes very frustrating because once you start saying two or three, the doctor's eyes start glazing over and they start really questioning what you're saying until you come with like your 10 binders full of diagnoses from different places.
And how often do you get asked who diagnosed you?
Oh, every time.
Yeah, I find that so psychotic.
I was lucky enough to go to a geneticist, and even though
the one in San Francisco,
genetic. No, when I lived in DC for a while.
Oh, okay, Arlington. Yes, got it.
And even though there's not a genetic, there's a genetic component, but there's not a genetic test for type 3. I tell everybody who I speak to, go have the geneticist tell you that it's for sure. For one, you know for sure it's not vascular or classic or anything else. But two, saying, oh, I was diagnosed by a geneticist carries so much more clout than just saying, oh, my primary care doctor diagnosed me. Oh, I had a rheumatologist. Saying the geneticist diagnosed me just changes people's opinion and changes doctors' opinions so much quicker. And you carry so much more weight that way. And it's silly, but it's the reality that we have to operate within.
It's the creepiest thing because I had never had anyone ask me that question before, because I have multiple conditions as well. And I'd never been asked who diagnosed me before. And it was like this very snobbish moment of, well, if this person didn't diagnose you, then we're just going to put suspected down. And I had to wait 3 years to see the geneticist in San Francisco. The waiting list was 3 years long. And the only reason it was only 3 years was someone canceled. And because I'm on disability, I don't have stuff during the day except other doctor's appointments. So I was able to take someone's appointment. So it was 3 years of everyone going, well, we think you have this, but until this one doctor gives you the write-off. Same thing with POTS. No one believed it until Dr. Friday at San Francisco Clinic said, oh, you have POTS. And then everyone's like, oh, she has POTS. It's like, great.
The hilarious thing with the POTS is anytime that I'm admitted to the hospital, they're always like, oh, we think you have POTS. I was like, yeah, I know, that's in my chart. And so they run me through the fake diagnoses of sit up, lay down, sit up, stand up while you're admitted to the hospital. I was like, this is ridiculous. And it makes no sense to me. And it's every single time I am admitted, I get re-diagnosed.
If I wanted the kneel, sit, stand, I'd go back to church.
Yes, exactly.
For anyone who does not have POTS, does not understand what POTS is, what we're talking about is that there is the diagnosis is 30 beats per minute difference between sitting and standing. For most of us, that goes much higher, much wider swing, and means you can pretty much either pass out, experience vertigo, throw up. So when we're talking about this little like test, we're not talking about like, oh, of course you can sit down and stand up and not like, this is actually pretty traumatic if you're in the middle of an attack and you suddenly vomit on someone's shoes or you fall into their arms. Like Victorian swoon style is not nearly as hot or romantic as anyone thinks it is. I mean, I've done it many times. Not cute. Very rarely does Mr. Darcy show up to catch me. So it's it's just, we're not talking about something very light here.
No, and I try to explain to the doctors, I now wear a Samsung watch everywhere I go, and I keep the heart rate monitor so that I know when I can stand up. And so going through that test every single time you're admitted to the hospital is absolutely ridiculous, especially because they decide to go ahead and also test your blood pressure too. So that's like another, it's an extra pain that you don't really need to go through.
No, and they also can like end up freaking out to a high level and start different things for you that are way overreactions because they're not used to what your blood pressure usually is or what your heart, like my blood pressure can go down to like 40 over 70 and it's not that weird for me. And they'll be like, you're in shock. Oh my God, let's get adrenaline in you. I'm like, not unless you want me dead. Like, you just have to like always re-educate like ER staff so that, because they're not used to these chronic conditions, so that you don't get killed or hurt. Or like when they want to relocate you in an ER and they're like, we're just going to yank that back. And you're like, no, this is how we relocate it. I just need help. Like, we're going to use the facial technique of relaxing the muscle and then we're going to guide it, not rip it back in.
Yeah.
Like,
well,
it's
and a
always
lot of
interesting.
times they'll hold off on pain medication because your blood pressure, your heart rate's too low. And I was like, no, that's where my blood pressure and heart rate normally is.
Mm-hmm.
We're okay. I'm not dying. This is just normal.
Yeah, I'm not dying. I feel like I just need to put on a t-shirt whenever I go to the ER. These are my stats, like, on my shirt. But you're right, like, that's someone, like, spoony thing that you can always tell with us with POTS is we always look down at our wrists before we stand. Like, that's, like, the one telltale of a POTS patient is, do I get to stand? No, I'm not standing yet. Let's just sit back and enjoy for a while.
Yeah. Oh, I sat up too fast. We need to take an extra minute.
Yeah, my husband or my daughter usually comes rushing to my side before I stand. They're like, so, do you need to lean?
Yeah, I've noticed actually hilariously with workouts, I often max out my heart rate anytime I'm doing anything. And it's so frustrating because you never really know if you push too hard because it's not a real indicator of how hard you push. It's just the fact that you're standing and doing anything.
One of the like most humbling things about this disorder for me, because I was an athlete, I was a ballerina, I was in martial arts, I was a I loved weightlifting more than any of the rest. Like that was my jam. That's where I felt powerful. And then to get this sick where I couldn't even do my job anymore and to be in bed so much of the time is that I've lowered the bar significantly to what I think is exercise. Like I realize now that I'm not going to be able to sweat it out at a 90-minute spin class anymore. That's just not going to happen. I won't be able to, for me personally, I'm not able to lift heavy weights at all. So when I went back to the gym to try, you were the one who inspired me. I did try. I went back to the gym and I was like, I will try 20 pounds, not my 80 pounds that when I left the gym, that's what I was doing. I'm going to try 20. But this whole thing just came out when I was doing a row and I was like, so I'll be leaving the gym now. Thank you for letting me try. I'm going home now permanently. But I do other things now when I'm at home. I have like the bands, which are only 1 or 2 pounds. So to go from like, I lift hundreds of pounds to now I'm like, I lift 3 pounds. And try to see that as not a failure. I try to see that as, this is me maintaining as much as I'm capable of maintaining right now. So it's just really changing your definition of success over and over and over again.
Yeah. I see any day that I can do anything as a win.
Right.
I mean, there are some days where I'm just at home and even just going out to the couch to me is a win.
Oh my God, yes.
No matter what I'm doing, as long as I'm doing something, as long as I'm just waking up and turning the TV on in bed can some days be the win for the day. And it's really going back to what we were talking about. It's all about living in the day, in the moment. Because what your win for yesterday might not be your win for today.
So that's probably the truest thing you said. Not that you haven't said a million true things so far, but that one, yesterday, that just hit me so hard because yesterday was so bad. I was like, hospital or physical therapy? Hospital or physical therapy? And like, I had to remind myself that that day was a wash. It was just going to be that I was gathering inspiration by watching Netflix and looking at Pinterest and curling in a ball and taking my Oxy, and that I was okay with that I had to take that much earlier than I usually take it. But I was gathering information. That was my reference for I'm going to watch Netflix all day long. All of Sabrina Teenage Witch, all of it. Poor Kyros, I was like, he had already watched it, and so I was like texting, going, "Do I hate this or love this, Kyros? I'm really not sure yet. Help me out. Do I keep watching?" But you're right. You just have to keep changing the like success point over and over and over again. Okay, I want to get to endometriosis because I don't have that. And every time someone describes it to me, my jaw just kind of hits the floor, and I get this whole empathy for everyone who hears my condition and gets that jaw drop look of like, no, you don't have to live with that, right? That's not a thing. You're joking. Because every time I hear what endometriosis is, my jaw drops, and I want to hug every person who has endometriosis because I'm like, that is a nightmare that horror movies wish they could come up with. And
seriously, it kind of is.
insane.
And it was one of those things that I know some people will probably get annoyed at me for this, but
people get annoyed with me all the time
that I kind of ignored. It's one of those things where you're like, well, there's not much I can do about it. It's just it is what it is. So let's move on to the diagnoses that really bother me. Like in comparison to everything else, it was one of those that since you knew what it was, since I think I got my first period around 16, I knew what it was. I knew that it ran in the family. So it was kind of one of those things that you just grow up accepting and grow up with, oh, it's just bad period pains. That's all it is. And you just kind of lie to yourself and be like, it's whatever. It's no big deal. Even though it's like one thing on top of another on top of another. And it's just like, it's one of those things where you can't get away from it. But at the same time, you just kind of have to accept it and move on from there.
It's amazing what we end up prioritizing with chronic illness, where it's like, as I talked to Desiree, who she oh gosh, if I messed up your name, Desiree, it's not that I don't love and adore you, it's that I have no brain cells. But she has CRPS, which I had years ago, and she has Ehlers-Danlos. And she's like, I'm sorry to say this, I know how much Ehlers-Danlos hurts you right now, but that's not my problem. My problem is the CRPS. And it's like, what keeps someone in a wheelchair from living their life might be that's not something we're hanging with right now. We need to focus over here with this that's way bigger. It's like the dislocations. Like the doctors will ask what's dislocated right now. I'm like, how about I just tell you it's the one that's the worst? And it's exactly. Like, it's funny because it's like anyone else who gets dislocations is like, oh my God, my leg is dislocated. This will be 6 months of repair. And I'm like, okay, leg dislocated, but the rib is the one that's killing me right now. Like, it's just these things that you prioritize. So for you, this is the endometriosis is not the be-all end-all. It's just something that you're managing below the rest of the screaming fire engine of.
For the most part, it actually. I ended up getting a Mirena IUD, so it's got that the hormones kind of constantly coming out, and that's helped immensely. And it's one of those things that I just kind of am able to move on with. Like it's maybe I just have a very minor case, or maybe it's just something that I've kind of learned to work around.
It's just funny, like, how much we learn how to work around when it's our bodies and we don't get to escape them. Like, you learn all sorts of, like, weird hacks that you're like, okay, this is how we do this. And, like, it's so funny when you say, like, the period pain, you're like, this is hurting. And everyone's like, well, it's just a bad period. And it's like, okay, I hear you. Because, like, I don't have that, but I get the worst cramps. Like I got them so bad when I was a teenager, they had to hospitalize, and they're like, well, it shows that you're in stage 1 labor with the level of cramps you're having. I'm like, well, this isn't that abnormal of a period for me. So you're just telling me I'm basically like my body's going stage 1 labor every month, like, and that's just something I'm just supposed to hang with. Like, there's got to be better options. I want way more research into like how to handle periods and cramps and everything. Like there needs to be so much more funding.
There needs to be so much more research done in so many things that that we just go through and kind of just brush off because we have to.
Right? Or what's the option? I mean, it's always the weird thing where people are like, shouldn't you be in bed? I'm like, yeah, but I kind of like to be alive too.
I don't want to be in bed, so I'm not going to be in bed.
I mean, it's like this podcast takes a ton out of me. That's a lot of work, and so I've gotten a few more people to help out with being co-hosts, but I shouldn't be doing this. There's no way. But I am bored, and I can only like stay isolated so long.
And, I mean, it's one of those things where you kind of look at it and go, the benefits outweigh the risks. What am I going to do? There's got to be something I can do to help other people out. And if I can, I don't have to leave my house to do it. That sounds amazing to me.
I would really love to leave my house, but I hear you.
Well, hilariously, in order to afford my competitions, my boyfriend now drives for DoorDash. And so a lot of times I'll go with him because some days that'll be the only thing I get to do during the, at all. And I'm like, oh, I will deliver all the food. You just drive because it's going to be the only exercise or the only human contact I get to do all day long. And so it's something I can look forward to. And hey, we might get a little money out of it too. So that's really nice.
I am digging how you guys have decided to fund your competitions. That is awesome. And by the way, you are my only human contact aside from my daughter, my mom, and my husband that I will have for like the next 2 or 3 days.
I'm lucky enough to have, I live with actually pretty much one of my best friends and her husband. That helps a lot. Like just having somebody who on days where I have a bad day, she comes in the room and says, okay, what do you need? And if she has just a bad day, I can ask her, okay, what do you need? And just having somebody, even if it's like just the best friend who lives down the street, like that just changes everything.
It's like my son calls me terminally optimistic, but I really am because I believe in like the kindness of people. Like I just have always had the best luck with, well, not always, but there's just been amazing humans that I've met in my life. When I was healthy enough to go to the dog park, I met some really amazing people who are still my people and will still occasionally, when they see on Facebook that I'm going, I still have not left my bed, will text me and go, so you probably need to eat. I will be by with soup for you. Just leave door unlocked.
It makes the world, like I remember so I lived in Alaska for my undergrad and I had just one of those colds that just before diagnosis.
Oh, wait a minute. What did you study in Alaska? That is.
I went there. I went to University of Alaska Anchorage for my undergrad degree in psychology and justice. But it was just one of those things of when else are you going to get to live in Alaska? Like, let's go do the degree in Alaska because that sounds like fun.
I'm going to put you in touch with my son because that's his dream is to like go up to Alaska and like live there, or Norway. Those are like his two like.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I miss it all the time.
Okay, but psychology and social justice, you are like screaming my language right now.
it was they actually their psychology degree that I got up there is probably the best degree that I've ever had. It prepared me for my master's and PhD more than my master's and PhD. Like I walked into the programs already steps ahead of the people who went to different places. Like the foundation in research and statistics really set me up so well, and it was really cool.
Has it helped you like research your own disorders? Like I feel like people who know how to research are so much farther ahead than I am at like looking through really dry articles.
It causes so many problems. Like I have this weird injury. We're guessing from the lifting of I have just this little nodule in my butt on my like gluteus maximus.
Can you just call it a tail?
And it's like in there. And so, of course, my first thing is, let's look at the articles. And, of course, the only thing that I read in articles are, hey, it's probably cancer. And I was like, I know it's not cancer because it hasn't grown. But all the articles are like these worst-case scenarios. And I was like, I wish I hadn't reached that level of reading articles. Like, if I had just Googled it, it would be like, oh, that's completely normal.
No, you Google it. It's always cancer. It's WebMD. It's like you can type in anything. I have a hangnail. It's cancer. Like...
And it's just, it's one of those things that just it'll take your brain forever to get past, because anytime you want to look up something, you're like immediately you end up with the medical research journals and you end up with the worst case scenarios that you could ever think of, and it's always cancer.
Yeah, WebMD does need to like change their website from WebMD to it's just cancer, get over it. Like,
you're already dead. You might be dead.
yeah, I've learned not to Google strange symptoms. I do go like that's one of the really like big things about having a diagnosis is that you then have social network support group, and like the Ehlers Danlos support group for Bay Area is awesome, and I can go on there all the time. And I'm like, so am I dying or is it Ehlers Danlos? Am I dying or is it POTS? Like it's my go-to before I go to the hospital.
Pretty much, and it's one of those things where like I help admin the large Facebook EDS group, and I see a lot of the members get very frustrated of people always asking, well, is this EDS? Is this something, or do I need to worry about it? And I understood where they were coming from until you start thinking about how many people have this fear every single day of, okay, is this just EDS, or is it something else I need to worry? Is it something bigger? And looking back, I had that worry of, it was so easy to brush off everything as just EDS or just something. I mean, I almost had my colon rupture from diverticulitis because I was like, oh, it's just something else. And have a soundboard to be like, okay, do I really need to worry about this, or should I just brush it off? It's really important, because a lot of times it's so easy for us to brush things off.
Yes, and Ehlers-Danlos is one of those disorders that will affect every ounce of your body, because our bodies are held together by connective tissue. So from our brains to our eyeballs to our teeth to our lungs, heart, internal organs, all of this is affected. So it's really easy to brush stuff off. And we also, you and I both live in the United States, and we all have very different insurance or lack of insurance. So the ability to just like, I know a lot of people are like, well, why don't you just go to an emergency room? Why don't you just go to an urgent care center? It's like, we don't have the NHIS. We can't just go into an emergency room and not, we never know in the United States when we go to an emergency room how much that bill is going to be. It can be between $1,000. I used to have really better insurance where it would never be more than $500. But now it's never less than $1,000, and we have to pay 20% of the full bill, which can be up to $100,000. So it's not easy for us to just go, okay, we're going to go to urgent care or hospital and see if we're dying. We actually do go into Facebook groups so that they can go, okay, that's probably just POTS, but this is, okay, by the way, everyone who doesn't have POTS, it can feel like a heart attack, exactly like a heart attack. You can get the chest pain that feels like an elephant's on you. Your left side can go numb. It's impossible to tell. My cardiologist was like, okay, so the deal is you will never know if it's a heart attack or it's POTS. You will just have to go to the emergency room. So a lot of us just go onto there to see if we really need to put our financial jeopardy in risk like that. That is, and if you are in a red state and you are disagreeing with me on like the ACA and all that, you cannot disagree with me that you do not know what your hospital bill is going to be, and that there are a lot of people who will choose between financial stability and going to the emergency room no matter what your political affiliation is. I'm not saying anything that should not be bipartisan right now. This is a scary thing, and we are going on Facebook to find out if we should go. Weird American realities.
People say, I'm not a doctor, but here's your diagnoses, basically.
There's one person whose husband is one. Someone on there's husband is one, and he's like actually gotten on and like messaged me and gone, get your tail to a doctor now, woman. Like, okay.
Yeah. Or there's times where I will be at the doctor's office and they'll be checking my heart rate, and they'll be like, okay, well, you need to go to the ER because this isn't normal. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to go to the ER because this is pretty much normal. We're good enough.
Yeah, close enough. It is that close enough thing that a lot of us have, like, I mean, like, we just, if we could go with, like, knowing exactly what we'd be paying, I'd be at the hospital a lot more often, and my husband would feel a lot less anxiety. Like, waiting it out to see if heart attack.
We also never know how we're going to get treated at the hospital. So a lot of times I just don't go because I don't want to deal with people, and I don't want to deal with the idea of the possibility of getting labeled, the possibility of the financial part, the possibility of getting treated poorly. Like, It's just, I'd rather just die at home.
Oh my god, yes. I've actually said that to my husband. I would actually rather just die at home than deal.
Yep.
Like, I have horrible anxiety about losing control in a hospital situation. And once you're admitted, you've lost all control. You can't just get up and leave.
Yeah.
Not if
Yeah.
you're being treated abusively or rudely or cruelly. You can't just get up and leave. They will decide on your treatment options without actually really discussing or even knowing your disorder.
Oh, definitely.
I should not have done that. Go ahead and watch this video and watch your host dislocate. It's fun. I will deal with that shoulder later. But that's a horrible anxiety. I actually go into like anxiety when I go into a hospital. It has nothing to do with my pain level. Like I cannot. I have panic attacks in hospitals just looking at that white coat and dealing with interns who are like, so you think you dislocate is a lot of the times what I hear first. So
you think this is this?
So I keep a thing on my phone in my photos that I keep all of my dislocations. I photograph all of my dislocations, and I photograph all of my ratchets from my mast cell, and I photograph my watch on what it says my heart rate is. So that when they start in with the, oh, you think, I'm like, let me show you. And it's amazing how seriously it can get taken right then and there when they can actually look at the photos and see that it's an actual thing that happens all the time. But the list you mentioned is my terror in life. Because with the opioid, the opioid freak out that is going on right now means that if I go to a hospital and I have to tell them what I'm on so that they don't kill me by giving me too much of anything, I can end up on a list if I'm not nice, polite, sweet, and vomiting sunshine for everyone who walks through the door, no matter how they're acting or treating me, because they can say I'm a drug seeker. Even if I refuse all drugs, even if I say I don't want the drugs, I can still get put on a list.
And since moving here, I don't have a doctor yet, and I don't have a primary care doctor or any of that yet, and so I'm on absolutely no medication. And they're like, well, then I guess it's not that bad. And I was like, well, no, it is, but I do not have a doctor to give me medication, so I have to deal. There's nothing I can do about that. And then when you ask, this pain is above and beyond what I'm used to, they look at you immediately, and it's just one of those greatest fears that are always in the back of my mind. And I've been told not too long ago I slipped and fell at a different gym, and I was told, well, maybe you shouldn't be weightlifting. Maybe that's your problem. And I was like, what does that have to do with the fact that there was water on their bathroom floor? Like, how do those two go together? Because they don't. And if it was anybody else with any other disorder, they would not have said that. They would have said, oh, let me help you. But instead, because you have EDS, they're like, well, maybe it's because of something else.
I will add
so
something else in. If you don't want to talk about it, just tell me to shut up. But I've been, like, it's the weight thing. Like, if I go in and I'm like, I'm in pain, my kneecap is dislocating all the time, I'm like, maybe I should lose 20 pounds. That might help. Like, it's like, I have no connective tissue. Let's focus on that.
Well, hilariously, so this last hospital admission, I was admitted for basically, they thought it might be C. diff, it could be a million things. It ended up just being a really bad flu. But the doctor came in and he ordered me taking my blood sugar every couple of hours. And I was like, why? I've never been diabetic. I've never even been close to diabetic. And he ordered it and it wouldn't come off my chart. The nurses were like, I'm so sorry. My fingers were getting so bruised because you combine everything and you add in pinpricks on the end of your fingers. You can't help that. And then he also ordered me a CPAP machine. And I was like, why? I don't have sleep apnea. I've never had sleep apnea. There's no reason. He's like, well, you look like somebody who might have sleep apnea. And I was like, excuse me? And what ended up happening was I ended up contacting the administration in the hospital, and they made a quick fix to everything. And I had actually never contacted the hospital before. I'd never stood up for myself, never talked to the patient advocacy or any of that. And it changed things night and day. Like, he I don't know whatever happened to that doctor, but he was not allowed anywhere near me after that. And so now I tell people all the time, contact somebody. If you're getting treated poorly, if you're getting denied something, contact, because I was like, do I need to make a thing out of this? I might need to make a thing out of this, because this is absolutely, I've never had that kind of treatment before. I've had the minor things of, well, if you lost weight, you'd be better. Maybe you should exercise. I was like, did we not have the conversation about what I do? Like, did I fall asleep and dream that conversation? But yeah, definitely, it happens so much, and it's so frustrating. I was told once by a rheumatologist, of all people, that if I went vegan, I would cure EDS. It's okay. Just try a vegan diet. I was like, well, that's going to fix my genes. Okay. Well, I'll get right on that. I should see a different doctor now.
Fantastic lack of basic biology knowledge. That's impressive. But, like, it's so shocking to hear that. Like, I have never heard anything like that from a doctor, but from well-meaning friends and family, if you prayed more, thought happier, warmer, and fuzzier thoughts, didn't eat sugar, didn't have wine, caffeine, sugar, bread, all the things that make my life worth living at the moment, everything would be better and fine. It just feels like a way for them to pass off the responsibility for, like, actually
it's somehow there. Your fault is what it is. It's somehow, it's not your body. It's just something that you're doing wrong. Which, I mean, in their defense, I understand that it would be amazing if I could just change my diet and things would be fine. I would change my diet in a heartbeat. And I understand, and I see their optimism, but at the same time, it's more condescension than anything.
Yeah, I like to think of it as more of an inability to sit there in a space with me of, this is not going to change, and you have to be okay with feeling hopeless about that, and them just not wanting to feel hopeless. So that's my better nature that speaks up every once in a while, and the snarky bitch still comes out a lot. But, like, when I'm actually able to practice mindfulness and togetherness, I'm always like, you know what? They're just having a hard time with losing control over the situation, and they just can't hold it and be here with me in that moment of helplessness. So, meditation, keep working on it. But Forbes,
I always take it as they're wanting to help and them trying to understand, but then at the same time I end up talking myself right out of it and being like, they're just not listening.
Fair enough. In Forbes magazine, I just went on a rant on Twitter about this, but they just did their top health gadgets of 2019, and the man with the most punchable face I've seen that is not part of the GOP was, like, there with his little selfie camera, and he had this product, and I think it was called Pain Pods, and he was like, for any of you who have chronic illness people in your life moaning, get them this to shut them up, and that is quotations, to get them to shut up. And I went on a fucking...
Is it duct tape for our mouth?
How about for his? My husband was looking at me going, what happened today in the news? I'm like, oddly, that's not what I'm mad about right now. He's like, all right, go. I went on a rant, and then I, like, went to my Twitter. I'm like, who's the most influential disabled person I can find right now? I sent them over the articles. I'm like, you have more of a following than I do. Could you, like... This is Forbes. This is not a random blogger. This is a national magazine that is saying these things about chronic pain. He even made a snide joke about the opioid crisis. And I'm like, you live in my body for 10 minutes, dude. Like, see if you survive multiple dislocations during the day and you don't groan and moan about it. God. Oh my gosh. I just looked, it's 53 minutes. I could, like, kidnap you all day. Do you have any ways that people can help support you for your strong woman stuff? Is there anything that we can do for you?
Right now I have a fundraiser going on GoFundMe and on my Facebook, mainly because getting to the America's Strongest Disabled Person competition is all the way in Ohio. So getting there is very tough. Basically, everything that I've collected so far has paid to get me to this first competition, and that competition is just in Santa Clara. So
Wow.
the cost of just doing, I actually got in an argument not too long ago with somebody they said, if you can't afford $20 wrist wraps, then you probably shouldn't be doing this sport. And I don't think that's fair. And I don't think that we should be leaving people out of sports because of their financial well-being. I think that's just absolutely elitist.
Preach it. Yes.
My jaw was on the floor, and then he had somebody else supporting what he said. He's like, yeah, this is an expensive sport. Yes, it is, but that doesn't mean that should bar you from competing.
Yes.
But it is a very expensive sport, but at the same time, I know I'm not going to win a lot, and I know I'm not going to, like, this next competition is an able-bodied competition, and I already know there's one specific exercise that I'm going to zero out on. There's no way I'm going to be able to do. But it's not about winning for me. It's about showing that we can at least try.
I was just going to say, don't you dare discount what you're doing and the visibility that you are showing and the inspiration you're giving to everyone, because winning is not what I find inspiring about you. I don't care how often you win. I care so much, like, seeing your posts and, like, seeing you working out and trying and doing the best you can in that day. And that just makes me feel like so good. If, like, the best thing I can do is get on my pedals and, like, rode my legs back and forth like a zero thing, I'm like, I'm doing it too. Like, you do so much.
It's one of those things that just being able to do it makes me feel so lucky. Like, there's days where there's no way I can do anything, but at the same time, I know that tomorrow I might be able to do something. And that to me is a blessing, because I know that I have a lot of friends who can't do anything, who would not be able to even get anywhere close to what I'm doing. And I think it's important that I get out there and do what I can for the people who can't right now.
On that amazing note, I cannot thank you enough for taking time this morning. And please, everyone, go over to show notes. And at the very top, you're going to see Kressenda's links to sign up for her Facebook, Instagram. Your Instagram account is awesome. So I'll have links to that so that everyone can start following you. I will have links to your GoFundMe page at the top. So if you go to invisiblebrokennut.com and you look up for this episode, you'll be able to go right to the top and hit those links. And also, I think if you go to any of the show notes, I'll have those at the very top. So please go head over there. Thank you, everyone, so much for tuning in this week. By the way, Africa, thank you for showing up. Oh my gosh, you guys are becoming one of our quickest growing audiences. I am so jealous. My voice is more traveled than my body. I would love to be over there with all of you. Africa is on my bucket list of places. There are so many countries in Africa I want to go to, and I'm so glad you guys are listening. Thank you. Be kind, be gentle, be a badass this week. If you still want to do anything nice for the podcast, best thing you can do is look over to Apple Podcast and give us stars, say nice things, or say constructive things in kind ways. I have two feelings. Please don't step on them. And I think that's it, everyone. Have a great week. Share us. Share this episode with other people you think this would be inspiring to. Share this to your social media group. Share this to family and friends. Thanks, everyone. Tune in next week. You are awesome at that.